from each happily ever after, every wish upon a star. Let's break down the movies that shaped who we are, from memory lane to now and everything in between. The most famous of films to the ones we've never seen. Decade by decade, all the times we laughed and cried, and with a little pixie dust, they will all take flight, reliving the feelings, and we're trying our very best. And if they mean the same to you, please be our guest. So hop aboard, we would love to have you as we hang with a certain mouth, the whole gang too. If you love nostalgia stuff, we hope this does the trick. Thanks for joining us as we deep dive the magic.
Hi, and welcome back to the Deep Diving Magic Podcast. I'm KJ.
And I'm Jeffrey, and we hope that everybody is having a fun and safe and merry holiday season. And today, a holiday episode, we will be diving into the 54th Disney feature-length film from July the 12th, 1961. It is a film called Nikki, Wild Dog of the North. This is based on the novel Nomads of the North by James Oliver Curwood. But tell me, what do we have for a synopsis about our friend Nikki, the Wild Dog of the North?
The rugged Canadian wilderness is the backdrop to this story of a dog separated from his owner.
Yeah. It's definitely Canadian.
I have never seen this before. I had never heard of this before. I didn't know what to expect.
I still don't know what to expect when we watched
it. After watching it, it was very similar to the True Life Adventure films. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of similarities there. Because you see all these different animals. But it runs an hour and 14 minutes. It was not on Disney Plus, right? It was. Did we get this? We rented it off Amazon. Yeah, it was a very, very interesting movie of a dog named Nikki. If that didn't give it away from you in the title, the dog is a Malamute, and it said it was part wolf and part husky.
Yeah.
So it opens up into a beautiful Canadian river scene. And it just kind of goes through all the different, like, I don't know, scenic Canadian scapes that are around.
Mm-hmm. It says it was filmed with cooperation in Canada.
Okay, the river. They talked about Big Thunder is the river, I guess, that they were going to go through. Yeah, so it opens up with an outdoor scene of the Canadian riverscape with a French song playing in the background. The only thing I understood out of the song was "Oh Canada," but I don't think it was the Canadian anthem. It just said "Oh Canada." Yeah. So anyway, it opens up with Nikki and the dog and his owner Andre being in a boat.
Okay.
Yep. So they're on a canoe, just minding their own business, and then they stop at a place, and he tells Nikki not to go too far. And he's a pup. Nikki is just a little pup, and he stumbles upon all these different things, and then it somehow shoots over to this bear and her cub, and then it starts to follow the cub, and the cub discovers Canadian geese, which are terrifying creatures all on their own. If you've never met them, run. They will attack you. I've been attacked by a Canadian goose before. I was actually flogged. They are terrifying creatures. Anyway, so the cub discovers them, and then the cub discovers a bee in kind of like a little meadowy area, and it's on a flower, and it gets stung on the nose, and it takes off running. And then it found a groundhog, and it just wanted to play, but the groundhog didn't want to play, so it ran back into its den, which caused the cub to fall down this ravine thing.
And then the vermin or whatever like pushes like dirt ball to like hit him like after he falls.
Yeah, Disney magic, because that would have really happened.
Yeah.
So then it says, whenever you're in trouble, climb a tree, because that is the standard for bear cubs. So the bear cub climbs the tree because it wants to find its mom again, and it doesn't know where it was. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's my mom, because it sees a bear paw. So it like goes to this little area where it had seen in the tree, but that wasn't its mom. It was a very angry male bear.
Grizzly.
Huh?
Grizzly bear.
Yeah, I would assume it was a grizzly because it was brown, a big brown bear. Um, I'm trying to remember. Hang on, somewhere I wrote its name down. So the bear's name is Niwa, the cub.
The cub, yeah.
And then the gray, or not the gray, the brown, like grizzly looking bear was named Makus. I didn't write Niwa's mom's name down. Anyway, so Makus is angry, and he is trying to kill Niwa, because apparently any male bear will kill bear cubs, any bear cub. So he is chasing Niwa, and Niwa runs up into a tree, and it's a very thin tree, but not too thin if you're a bear cub. But obviously, Makus cannot climb this tree. So Makus is very angry at the bottom of this tree, and he is shaking the tree, trying to knock Niwa out of the tree. And luckily for Niwa, his mom hears him and comes to save him. And it talks about how the mother will die defending her cub. Like, she's not going to let anybody just kill her own cub.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes into this scene of Makus and Niwa's mom fighting. And then you hear this obviously bear noise while they're fighting, and then Niwa up in a tree. And then luckily Nikki hears this too, and he like leads his owner to this. And then by the time Nikki finds Niwa is still up in the tree, and then his owner's like, "Oh, well, look at you! You've trapped a bear cub up a tree. Its mom's not going to be very happy. We should go." And then he happens to stumble upon Niwa's mom and sees that she's dead, and he's like, "Oh, well, that's not good, because he can't survive without his mom. What should we do?" "Okay, we'll take him with us, but I don't think it's a good idea." So Andres basically cuts this tree down, and Niwa falls out of the tree when it falls. And then for some reason, Andres thinks it's a good idea to tie a rope around,
Leather, like strap type thing.
yeah, around
Both animals.
the neck of the bear cub, Niwa, and his dog, Nikki. And you wanted him, so you will keep up with him. So he puts them back in the canoe. They're going down the river some more. Tied together, fighting together. And he's just like, "Guys, stop fighting." Da, da, da. And then at one point, Niwa knocks Nikki out into the water. And he gets him back in. Then he tells them, "You guys have to stop fighting." And then they end up going down this rapid, which knocks the canoe over. So the canoe has tipped. And then Andres makes it to shore, grabs the canoe. He's lost all of his supplies and his dog and Niwa, the bear. You don't ever see them again in the river until moments later, but obviously Andres does not see them. So somehow they made it down this
treacherous
drop,
yeah.
It looked like. So basically they're whitewater rafting with no raft. And they finally find like a log, and they get on the log, and
you know what I'm gonna say about that, right? that these two animals found out how to share a log. They're already smarter than Rose from the Titanic. So go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, um, they find a log. They climbed on the log, and then they decide that it's kind of calm enough now that they can probably try to get out of the water. So they talked about how Nikki had the power, and Niwa steered for the course. So Niwa stayed on the log, and because they're still tied together by their necks.
The power of doggy paddle.
Yeah. They make it to land, and then they get tangled around a tree together. Oh my god. Eventually, they somehow get unwound from the tree, and they find their owner. And Nikki sees that he's leaving them, but obviously he's still looking for them, but he can't find them. So the owner's just bebopping down the river, but the bear wants nothing to do with it and keeps trying to go away and causes this long, drawn out movie. Because they cannot get along. The dog has nothing to eat. They can't agree where to sleep.
Yeah, that poor dog for the sleeping one. Like the bear is not like the dog is not always the innocent one here, but like sleeping wise, that poor dog.
True. The bear sleeps on a tree branch, and then the dog sleeps basically with its butt in the air because he's still tied to the neck of the bear that's up in the tree. And then the morning comes and he's hungry and he wants to eat. And he has to hunt for something because he has nothing to eat. And the bear has basically everything around him that he can eat because he eats plants and berries and all this stuff. And then finally, the dog's like, well, if I'm going to live with the bear, I'm going to probably have to eat like the bear. So he tries to eat some of the bear's berries that he's eating, but apparently he discovers they're sour berries and he doesn't seem to be very keen on that. And then Niwa leads them to a honey tree. And it does nothing to Niwa, the bear, but it gets Nikki stung a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he is finally like, no, we're not doing this, and like makes them run away. They then go to the river for some water, and then Nikki finds his owner's scent, or so he thought. But it was not his owner. It was a not so nice man and a First Nations person. And the not so nice man is not being very nice to his partner.
Can I interject one thing in here?
Mm-hmm.
At some point in here, Nikki has broken the connector between him and the bear.
Yes.
Because only Nikki goes to the
yes.
To the guy. Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry. But keep in mind, Niwa still has the leather rope thing tied around his neck.
They call it a thong. But yeah.
Anyway, he still has it tied on his neck. So anyway, he stumbles upon these people and he kind of stays out of the sight and kind of like sniffs and finds them. And then the guy's not being very nice to his supposed partner, which is the First Nation persons, which he basically calls him out on it. He's like, you're not treating me like a partner. Like, you want to go over here and hunt all this game and you don't know where to go. I show you where to set the traps and all this stuff. And if you don't do that, like, I'm not going to do this. And then the guy starts to be a little bit nicer to him, but you can tell he's like still not being that nice. And then the not so nice man hears Nikki howl and he thinks it's a wolf, so he shoots at him. And then at that point, Nikki realizes, hey, like, this is not my owner and he's not going to be nice to me. So he runs away.
Rejected by man, he now belongs to the wilderness.
Yeah. And then he stumbles upon some timber wolves, which are on the scent of a bull elk. And then Niwa and Nikki find each other again. And they sleep inside of a hollow log together. And then the next morning, when they wake up, Niwa finally gets the whatever Jeff said off his neck. And then they see a lynx, which is like a bobcat-like creature, which has, it looked like took down like a deer or something. I think it was a deer. And Nikki at this point is still hungry because he hasn't eaten. And then you see a Wolverine.
Terrifying.
Yeah. And then Nikki actually caught a rabbit, and the Wolverine attacks Nikki and takes his food. But then it stumbles upon the lynx, and it talks again about like how one of the true life adventure films that we watched talked about how like the Wolverine has an unsatiable hunger, and it will just, if you have something, it's going to take it because it doesn't care. It has no fear. So it takes Nikki's food, and then it stumbles upon the lynx, which has a bigger kill, so it takes that food, leaves the rabbit that Nikki had, and then lo and behold, Niwa finds the rabbit and picks it up and brings it back to Nikki.
Mhm.
Like, hey, buddy, here's your food. And then they're playing finally together, and because that's all they have is each other, because Niwa doesn't have a mom anymore, and poor Nikki doesn't have an older anymore. So they're playing, they're getting along, and then they're roughhousing, and then they accidentally stumble upon Macoose again. Do do do.
The mother killing grizzly bear.
Yeah. So anyway, Makus is there. He is trying to kill Niwa. And Niwa then again runs up a tree because he did not learn his lesson the first time. And it talked about how Makus cannot climb up a tree because he's not really too much of a tree climber. But Nikki doesn't know this. So Nikki thinks he's got to save his friend. So he runs down the embankment that Niwa had fallen down again, and basically starts barking and distracts Makus and lures him away from Niwa so that Niwa can get away. And then at some point, he runs through a hollow log, which has Makus go through the log, and then he just Disney magic pushed the log down a hill.
It just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, and then it hits a real big tree and bursts. And Makus is at the bottom of this and very, very angry. And he is just taking it out on some kind of little twig Charlie Brown tree. And he is just so mad and going off. And then Niwa and Nikki go off together. And then it talks about how winter came and they had barely noticed until all of a sudden it's like super cold. And they played in the snow together. So they're playing in the snow. But then it keeps talking about how Niwa realizes something's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and he is just so tired. And then somehow they, by instinct, get led back to Niwa's den where he is supposed to hibernate, where he was basically born and lived with his mom. And he realizes it's time to hibernate. But Nikki's not happy about this because he doesn't understand. He thinks they've got to be outside hunting. And Niwa just lays down and goes to bed.
His body nourished by its own fat.
Yes. And then Nikki realizes, well, I gotta feed myself. So he goes outside. He finds a blue fox trying to catch a muskrat. He watches the skill, and I was like, hey, I think I can do this too, because he couldn't steal the muskrat from the blue fox. So he goes over to the thing and tries to kill the muskrat. And then another muskrat he tries to lure out, and maybe it'll be easier to get, but it doesn't work out for him. Then he finds an elk and thinks to himself, well, my wolf cousins did this. Maybe I can do this. But what he doesn't realize is wolves actually trap things in packs, and that's how it works out for them, and they're able to be successful. Well, Nikki's by himself and doesn't realize that's not going to work. And then he actually corners the elk because the elk finally does get tired. But then at that point, he learns that the elk has horns, which he picks him up and tosses him across the snow. And then he realizes that's not going to work for him. So he gives up on that and he goes to find something else. And then he finds a mouse and then he tries to get the mouse, but he's just not that clever to get this tiny little mouse, which runs up a tree and basically just he's humiliated by all these unsuccessful attempts at hunting. Then he heard a pack of wolves and he answered the pack's call because apparently this is his natural instinct coming out, kind of like hibernation comes out for Nila. It's like, I'm going to join my wolfy cousins and I'm going to go to them as friends and then we're going to live happily ever after because, this is a Disney film. And Nikki apparently has watched Disney films and thinks that that's what's going to happen. So he runs over to the wolf pack, and the wolf pack does not meet him with friendship but with fury, and they start to attack him. And then they start to turn on each other, and then that's when Nikki uses this to get away from the wolves. So then he runs away to safety and realizes, I am alone. I have nobody. What kind of Disney film is this? And then he finds the scent of man again. But at this point, it's been so long, he doesn't really know what this is anymore. But he thinks if he keeps following it, he'll find food. And he does. But he gets caught in a trap. It's like a bear trap. But it basically just gets his fur on his neck, it looks like. So he got super lucky. And he got it off of him. But then he followed some more tracks. And when he followed more tracks, he discovered, well, if the last one had something in it, this one's probably going to have something in it too, so I should be careful. So then he starts to learn to kick snow into the trap first to set off the bear trap. I guess that's what you would call that.
Yeah.
And then after he hears the sound of metal, he knows it's safe to go in.
He eats the food.
So then he grabs the meat and goes. And it's just a little bit at a time. But he keeps following these tracks and keeps finding more and more tracks and sets off the bear traps and then gets the food. Then you see, dun dun dun, the not so nice man again and his First Nation friend. And he's like, what is going on? A wolf keeps eating my food. And the First Nations person's like, a wolf is not eating your food. This is a dog. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is definitely a wolf. And he's like, no, this is a very smart dog. A wolf is going to smell man and not go near this. A dog is going to smell man and think this is familiar. He's going to go to it. And wouldn't you know, the First Nation person is right. So the trapper is like, give me some of the poison and some of the fat. So he basically puts some kind of poison into this like elk fat and rolls it up and puts it in like the trap because he realizes that this dog has figured out, well, he thinks it's a wolf, has figured out how to set the bear trap off so that way he can get the food. So then he sets the trap in there and then he puts the poison in there and waits, and he says one bite and he'll be dead. He's been hanging out with the evil queen. So then on to this Disney movie. You find poor little Nikki. Nikki stumbles upon this. Nikki sets the trap off. There is sound of metal. It's safe to go in there. He sniffs this because it's not meat like it has been on the others. It's fat. It smells weird. What is this? He leaves it and goes away. And I thought, yay, Nikki's smart. Then he goes back and sniffs it some more. And then he takes it out of the trap and then takes a little bite. And then he's like, what is this? And then leaves it. And then heads on his way because he's like, that's not right. But apparently he makes it a little bit further down. And I guess he did have enough poison that it did cause him some paralysis, but it didn't kill him. And then when the trapper and the First Nation person finds him, his tracks, they're like, oh, well, he did eat it, but it did something to him because he's doing something weird. So then he has the First Nation person track the tracks. I don't know why he needed him to do that. It's clearly snow, so he could have just followed them. And then they find where, at one point, Nikki was laying down and then got up. And he said, well, he seems to be doing fine now. So then they think they found where he's staying. And then they try to burn him out of this bush fire thing.
Just smoke them out.
And then he sneaks out the back. And when the guy tries to shoot at the dog, the First Nation person like pushes him out of the way, or so he thought. And then he gets upset and he goes, "Well, you did this." And he goes, "No, I grabbed his food," because he caught a rabbit that came out of where Nikki was also hiding. And he goes, "Dog live here, dog come back." So obviously the trapper just is a complete idiot. I don't even know why this other guy's helping him. And they end up tying this rabbit to a stump. The rabbit is still alive. And then they set up a bunch of traps around it because this guy's like, "I'm going to get this dog." Because at that point, I think he realizes it's a dog. And then Nikki does come back and he sees the rabbit and he's like, "Oh, food." And then he's like, "But why is it not running? Because normally it would run. Something's weird about this." And then I guess he gets too close and he gets stuck in a trap. And then a pack of wolves come. Dun, dun, dun. It's like Beauty and the Beast. The wolves come.
We're not there yet.
And they don't like him, remember? So they're trying to kill Nikki. And the trapper and the First Nation person sees this. And at first, it looked like the trapper was going to do something. Then he stops because he realizes, well, I mean, that dog is trapped down there and that wolf is going to take care of him for me. And then the First Nation person's like, "The dog's not going to die that way." And then he tries to stop him. But then they hear a yelp and they look and they realize Nikki has killed the wolf that was attacking him. Then he's like, "Oh, he's strong. He's going to be a fighting dog. I'll use him in the fighting pits and he'll win me many pelts and furs and whatever."
Yeah, they're going to breed Nikki to hate and to fight.
Yeah, so he's not very nice to Nikki as the First Nation person like walks up to him and he goes, "Oh no, he's friend." And the dog's like over there sniffing him and he's like, "No, no, no. We have to treat him this way so that way he'll just fight." And they take him back to the fort in a cage. And this guy's like, "I'm about to make a lot of money. This dog was actually worth my time." And then he gets there and finds out that dog fighting has been banned. Thank God.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Well, no, we're gonna fight the dogs." And then some other guy there is like, "No, the factor won't let it happen anymore." And he's like, "Well, I'll deal with the factor. Do you want to fight my Malamute against your wolf dog?" And he's like, "Well, the factor's not gonna, no, 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 let me handle the factor." And he's like, "Okay." So then they go in this fighting pit, which is basically just embanked snow that they've made like a pit out of snow. And then they have the two cages with the dogs in it, and they let the dogs go to fight each other. Nikki gets out and he's trying to figure out how to get up the snow embankment so he can get away. And then the guy, the trapper, is yelling at him to turn around because the wolf dog is attacking him. And then at that point, Nikki realizes, okay, well, I can't do this. And he basically turns around and has the wolf dog pinned and is killing him. And then the other guy's like, "Call your dog off of my dog." And then I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, because Nikki doesn't know these commands because he just found this guy. So basically, he distracts Nikki and gets him away. And then the guy gets in there and saves his wolf dog, which was technically a lot smaller than Nikki. I don't know why he would have bet that much on it.
Maybe he was a champion.
I guess. Anyway, and then the factor comes and he is very mad that they have disobeyed him. And he's like, "I told you this is not happening. This is brutality. This is not right. I am not allowing it." And then the guy that I really just I don't even know his name, but I just really hate him. I put the not so nice guy in my notes because he doesn't even deserve a name. And he pushes the factor into the dog pit to let Nikki take care of him, but he doesn't know his name's Nikki. and Nikki's growling at the factor and is basically about to turn on the factor, and then he doesn't. And the guy was like, "Oh, did you think you knew me? Is that why you're not attacking me? You couldn't be." And then we find out the factor is Andres. And he's like, "Are you Nikki? Because the last time I saw you, you were just a puppy, but now you're all grown up." And then he realizes it's Nikki, his dog that he lost. So he did just leave his dog out in the wilderness. Disney movie, because where else are you going to find your dog this long? Um, so then he's like, "Oh, okay." And then the factor is just like, "Okay, this is not going to happen anymore." And then the other guy's like, "No, whatever. This is," and then they start fighting. And it's some kind of weird fighting that I've never seen. It's fighting where you don't use your
Yeah,
hands.
they're just kicking each other.
Yeah. And then I sit there and thought to myself, is this the fighting that they would have done in what was that one movie with True Sun?
Oh yeah, Light in the Forest.
Yeah, The Light in the Forest. I was like, it has a light in the name. Is that the kind of fighting that they would have done? Because it was like different. Because you didn't like literally they held their hands like this and they just basically were kicking at each other.
Yeah, they were like drop
and
kicking
I
each
was like,
other.
what is this?
It was a snowy WWE match.
Yeah, and then at one point the trapper grabs a knife out and the First Nation person saw that. And I guess he's tired of this guy just doing whatever he wants, being mean to everybody, making his own rules up. And he must realize that this guy is not the guy that should be running things. So he lets Nikki go. And Nikki protects his old owner. And everybody's like, "Oh my God, he just killed this guy. We have to shoot this dog because he killed a man. You know the rules." And the factor's like, "Well, I mean, he was attacking me and that we don't need to kill this dog." And they're like, "No, like you need to step away because these are the rules that we've made. This dog has killed a man. He's going to get shot." And then finally, the First Nation person says, "No, don't kill the dog." And then he rolled him over and he goes, "He was actually going to kill the factor." And when he rolls the dead guy over, they see that he stabbed himself with his own knife when Nikki jumped on him. So then they're like, "Oh, he didn't." Thank God we don't just jump to conclusions, people. So, dun dun dun. So the First Nations person, which ends up being Makoki, ends up being friends with Andres, who was the factor. And then you see them in it's spring, and they're back in the canoe. They're together
with Nikki,
the grown-up dog now, and they stop at a place. And then Andres tells Makoki, "Oh, he realizes this where we're at. He's familiar with this place. It was just right around here, a little bit down that I lost him." And um, then Nikki just reunited all of a sudden with Niwa because it's spring and he's waking up. But poor Niwa has been like in a deep slumber, so kind of like Snow White. And
he's a full-grown bear now.
Yeah, he didn't get True Love's kiss to wake him up. So, or First Love's kiss, which is actually the thing that I told you that most of us don't remember. He did not get this kiss, but he wakes up and he doesn't really remember Nikki. He doesn't attack Nikki, but he doesn't really remember Nikki like Nikki remembers him. And neither is he thrilled about it. But they're reunited. But then Nikki realizes he has to make a choice and he decides he's going to stay with his owner. And then Niwa runs off into the wilderness. And
he chooses man over wilderness.
Yeah. Dun dun dun.
And only Nikki knows what really happened.
Yeah. Nikki led a hard life.
But as they sail off afterwards in their canoe, Niwa the bear does watch as they continue their journey.
Yeah, because I think it did say that when Nikki found him, Niwa would smell the heavy scent of man on him. The
end.
Yeah, not gonna lie. I didn't think it was that bad.
It was
And
shot weird, but yeah, I don't know.
it was shot weird. And then it got to the dog fighting scene, and I was like, I'm gonna rate this a 1 or 2. I might even rate it a 0. Like, this is ridiculous. This is outdated. Um, there's no need for this. I would like to shoot someone myself.
So then, what did you rate it?
And then the factor ended up being Andres, and it actually ended up having a happy ending with the other guy stabbing himself because karma realized that guy did not need to live anymore. So, um, I don't know. I did rate it higher than that. Anyway, I was going to talk about other stuff, but we don't even need to talk about that, to be honest. That was the movie. It was not that great. Um, only for the fact that Nikki survived, he found his owner, and then he also got to see Miwa again. And the First Nations person, Makoki, ended up being friends with Andres. It did have a happy ending, especially with the other guy dying. I guess happy ever after the guy died. So I definitely did rate it higher than I was going to. IMDb gave it a 6.7 out of 10. I gave it a 5 out of 10.
So it doesn't make your
It does
list.
not make my list upon a star.
Well, then what is your list upon a star?
So my list upon a star is 101 Dalmatians, The Parent Trap, Sleeping Beauty, Dumbo, The Lady and the Tramp, The Three Caballeros, The Shaggy Dog, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, and Fantasia.
Yeah, this film was just not it. There's a reason that you haven't heard of it.
Yeah,
There's
a reason why it's not on Disney Plus.
There's a reason it's not on Disney Plus. There's no warnings to be able to put on this, but this also does not make my list upon a star. My list is 101 Dalmatians, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Pinocchio, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty, Lady and the Tramp, The Swiss Family Robinson, and The Parent Trap. Got any more facts about this lovely, heartwarming holiday season film?
I had just looked into how they would actually film things with the different animals, and it talked about how, like, even at that time, like Disney had high standards for the animals that they used and the training that they used. Positive reinforcement was used to get them. Multiple huskies were used in the filming of this to be Nikki, so it wasn't just like it was one dog. And then like certain dogs would be trained to do specific things, so it's not like one dog's being like overtrained to do stuff. And then even the bear, it said, had like specific training and stuff with positive reinforcement, so that way it would actually get along with and be able to do the filming with a dog. And then I guess the wolf and the fighting dog scenes and stuff were like specifically filmed a certain way, so that way there was no chance that the animals would be harmed. And then maybe that's why I was fine, because I literally was going to give it a 3 after that, but then I was like, well, I mean, no animals were actually harmed, but to me, they didn't need to have dog fighting in this. It was ridiculous. Shot in the face. But I definitely won't watch it again.
No.
I wouldn't recommend you waste your money. It is on Amazon if you are.
But if you are a completist,
if you are a completist, you can find this beauty on Amazon. If you were curious about it, I literally just went through the entire synopsis with you, and I actually probably made it more entertaining than it actually was. So, with that Disney magic, on to you, Jeff.
Speaking of Disney magic and films that we'll dive into. So our next episode, which is actually the final deep dive of the year 2024, if you're watching when this comes out, is
how is it already the end of the year anyway?
Yeah, well,
time flies when you're having fun.
That's right. It's a Disney feature-length film that's also about a dog, and it's a film that was released only 5 days after this film, after Nikki the Wild Dog of the North. 5 days later. Like I said, it's another film entirely about a dog.
They're
And
probably like, guys, we gotta give somebody a feel good movie because you don't know what we just did with this one.
So will our thoughts be the same? Have we ever heard of it? Have you ever heard of it? Either way, it is the 55th Disney feature-length film. It's also from July of 1961, and it is called Greyfriars Bobby.
Yeah.
So we'll see you then for our New Year's Eve celebration.
Thanks for deep diving the magic.
Right.
Bye.